following is a presentation of KSL Sports. Hello, Cougar Nation.
Handoff middle. First down. Touchdown! And listen to the Cougar Nation.
Every Monday night, we break down the Cougars' last game and look ahead to next week. Cougar Nation, brought to you by Central Bank. Here's BYU insider Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte on Utah's legacy home of the Cougars, KSL News Radio.
Good evening, Cougar Nation. Welcome on into your show. Cougar Nation, every single Monday night, we're taking your phone calls to react to the latest in BYU sports. It's a BYU basketball edition, and the Cougars are facing tough times right now. 3-game losing streak, but I think better days lie ahead. Mitch Harper, Matt Baiamonte here with you. It's been a tough stretch for these Cougar Hoopers, Matt.
It really has. 3-game losing streak. They're not scoring the ball well, Mitch, and there's a lot to break down. There's a lot of reasons why, and we'll do that over this next hour.
Let's do it right now, starting with our takeaways.
Cougar Nation, takeaways. Mitch and Matt analyze BYU's last week of play and what it means for the next week.
0-2 a week ago. They lost to Texas Tech last Tuesday at home, and that could be forgiven because Texas Tech, top 20 team in Ken Palm, really good basketball team. It's unexpected to lose at the Marriott Center, but hey, it happens. Sometimes a team gets hot and you lose a game, but then to go on the road to a mediocre TCU team on a Saturday afternoon, lose 71-67, those are the type of games you've got to win, Matt. TCU was a team that near the bottom of the Big 12 in terms of resume and metrics, and they come away with a loss in that one, and BYU changed up its starting lineup in that game and the groupings and the rotation, yet still came away with an L. What's your big takeaway from that loss at TCU?
My big takeaway, Mitch, is the injury to Yegor Demon, and his play since returning from the injury has really hurt this BYU basketball team. Demon is in a slump. There's no other way to say it. He's only shooting 28% from the field post-injury. He's only made 3 of 32 of his threes. That's single-digit percent, Mitch. That's 9%. And this is, I think, where I'm having a hard time with Yegor right now. And he's got to work through this, and they need him to get better if they're going to get to the tournament. His specialty is court vision and running an offense and getting people the ball. He's nearly averaging as many turnovers as assists right now, Mitch. And then on top of that, he's not rebounding the ball well. You look at the numbers in that loss against TCU, 8 points, 3 of 8 from the field, 0 of 3 from 3, 4 assists, 4 turnovers, 2 rebounds. He's supposed to be your best player. This is supposed to be a lottery pick. This guy has got to play better basketball if this team wants to get to the tournament. And so my takeaway is Yegor's in a slump. It's really hurting this basketball team, and hopefully Yegor and this coaching staff can find ways to get him back to what he was pre-injury, because pre-injury he was like rising draft boards, Mitch. He was like, at one point I thought he was like a number 2 or 3 pick in some mock drafts. I know those don't mean anything, but his stock was rising. Since the injury, he just has not looked anything like that guy we saw at the beginning of the season.
Finished -3 and plus-minus for BYU players in that loss against TCU in the starting 5. Had a negative plus-minus in that game. This was Kevin Young earlier today on Yegor Demon's slump.
It's something I think about a lot, watching a lot of film, a lot of discussions with him and just people around him. You got to go through it, man. Sometimes the only way to go through it is just to go through it. I know that's super cliche, but, I think his shooting woes are probably weighing on him. I think he's in the last 2 games, outside of that last shot that he took at TCU, I think he's taken more of the right shots. I think he's in a pretty good rhythm offensively as it relates to just his attacking. He had a couple uncharacteristic turnovers that I know he'd want to have back, but he's got to go through it a little bit. I think some of these grouping changes that we're making will help him, and I expect him to bounce back. The one thing I love about him is, man, none of this has deterred him from working. He's one of the first guys in the gym. He's always in here early working on his game. He's extremely prideful. He wants to play better. And, you got to kind of go through this difficult period of time and just got to get on the other side of it.
Hopefully he gets on the other side here soon because BYU needs him. If BYU is going to be an NCAA tournament team, Matt, and right now they would not. They're 10-5 on a 3-game skid. They need Yegor Demon to be a star. One of my big takeaways coming out of that TCU game, it's going to be hard to win any game when you have 13 less field goals attempts than your opponent. TCU had 59 attempts, BYU only 46. The turnovers were costly in that game. 16 turnovers for BYU, only 6 for TCU. Some of them late were costly. Richie Saunders stepping out of bounds. BYU's got to take care of possessions because right now it's just they're not finding answers in the clutch.
And that leads me to my next takeaway, which is I thought Dallin Hall played his best game of the year. Only 6 points, but he's 2 of 4 from 3, 6 assists to 1 turnover. Right now, Dallin Hall is the best point guard on the team. Until Yegor Demon can figure out how to get out of this slump, Dallin Hall is your best option for running good offense. And maybe, I know he went to the bench in that game. Maybe you bring him back to the starting lineup, and he runs more of the action, maybe a little bit more than Yegor until Yegor figures it out. But to your point, the turnovers are deadly. They are absolutely deadly. They were minus 11 in that game against TCU. You need your point guards to take care of the ball. And last year I thought Dallin did such a great job initiating offense, taking care of the basketball. It's been a little up and down this year, and some of that's due to that injury he suffered before the season began. But I think he is on the rise. He's playing good basketball. I'd like to see him initiate offense a little bit more. If there was any positive takeaway from that game for me, because there weren't many. Obviously, Richie, unbelievable performance. But Dallin Hall, there was something there. I was really disappointed, Mitch, that on the possession in which Kevin Young referenced the bad shot from Yegor, and he hasn't taken many of these, so we don't need to rip him too much. But Dallin needed the ball there. He was playing much better basketball in that game. I would have loved to seen a high pick and roll with Dallin. What comes of that? Because 6-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, that's what Hall had in the loss. That is something you can build on. That is exactly what you need to cut down those turnovers.
Kevin Young highlighted one of the lineups that he liked from that game against TCU that included Dallin Hall.
The lineup that I did really like was, Dallin, Trevin, Richie, Mawut, and Foose. That was the group that really pushed us to a nice little run there to end the first half. So what's the commonality with that group? You got a lot of veteran guys out there that know what they're doing.
That is beneficial, but BYU, I think, still needs those young guys. We'll talk more about that coming up a little bit later. My other takeaway, BYU is not an up-tempo team right now. And when you think of Yegor at his best, Dallin Hall at his best, BYU basketball to its core is at its best when it's an up-tempo team. Right now in Big 12 play, they're rated 16th in Ken Palm's tempo metrics, dead last in Big 12 play. So BYU's tempo, pretty slower than they were expecting this season. I think that's playing a part in them jumping out to this 1-3 start, Matt.
That's such a great point, Mitch, because think about last year's team and where they excelled. It was up and down the floor. They were pouring in the points. They were shooting a lot of threes. They were making a lot of threes. We just have not seen that very much. They got to find a way to get back to that. And Kevin Young's talked about that. They want to play with pace. They want to play with tempo. And for whatever reason, it could be the personnel groupings that Coach Young has talked about. It could be just those turnovers. I mean, when you have turnovers, it's hard to get out and run. There's no flow. It affects your defense. It affects everything. Turnovers are a disease, Mitch. It plagues every part of the game. That has to be fixed going forward. But they got to find a way to get up tempo. And this is kind of a bonus takeaway too, Mitch, but there doesn't seem to be a clear identity yet of who does what, what's the rotation, who starts, what roles do you fill, and I don't want to – there's no one to blame for this, Mitch, because the injuries have really set this team back. There's maybe that's not what BYU fans want to hear, but it's the reality. They've played so few games together, it's hard to get a sense of what your best starting five is, who's your sixth man, where do certain guys fit in certain roles. We have no clue what that is right now. Because of the injuries, they've got to find that because there's talented players here on this team that you don't know what they're going to do and when they're going to play, and that's got to be defined. And if that's Mawot Mag playing more minutes, I'm all for it. Whoever's playing well, I just think it's hard for some players, Mag, Catchings, Baker, Hall even, hard to get in a rhythm, hard to get in a flow when you don't really know what your role is and how many minutes you're going to play.
Central Bank serving Utah County for over 133 years with trusted service, modern technology, and personalized care. Central Bank, proud sponsor of Cougar Nation. What does BYU basketball need to do to snap its 3-game losing streak? Let's take your phone calls, 801-575-8255. Again, that's 801-575-TALK right here on Cougar Nation on KSL News Radio.